Tonight, abortion emergency. The White House weighs declaring a public health emergency over access to abortion.
Public health emergency is supposed to be declared so you can save lives. And in this case, they want to declare one to end life.
The 2024 race to the White House is on.
I'm Nikki Haley, and I'm running for president.
Nikki Haley enters the conversation and investigating the glitch.
We have found no evidence of a cyber attack or other malicious intent.
After the grounding of all flights in the U.S. over a computer network failure last month. All this and more on Faith Nation. The push to make abortion access a public health emergency. Good evening in Washington. I'm Jenna Browder. The Biden administration is reportedly considering declaring a public health emergency on abortion to expand nationwide access. It comes as many states have passed laws significantly restricting or banning abortion post Roe v. Wade. CBN News White House correspondent Abigail Robertson is following the story and joins us with more, including how a declaration like this might actually work. Abigail?
Well, Jenna, President Biden has vowed to do everything he can to protect access to abortion nationwide, and his next move may go directly after those states with pro-life laws on the books.
If Congress passes a national ban, I will veto it.
In late January, Axios reported Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra's decision to consider different options for expanding abortion access, including a potential emergency declaration.
A public health emergency is supposed to be declared so you can save lives. And in this case, they want to declare one to end life.
Such a move could open up federal funding for women to travel for an abortion if their state bans the procedure, and also make abortion medication more widely available.
To think that you can crush state laws, suppress the voices of people, so that you can end more life in the womb, it's an extraordinary overreach.
While the administration has hinted in the past this decision does not seem like a great option, Becerra confirmed to Axios HHS is doing an evaluation on abortion to determine whether an emergency declaration is needed.
I find it just absolutely confounding to think that protecting life could be declared a national health emergency.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin tells CBN News he's astounded this is being considered.
There's a moment here for us as Americans to step back and recognize the extremism on display here.
Abortion is currently legal in Virginia until 26 weeks and 6 days into pregnancy. Governor Youngkin hopes to bring the threshold down to when a child can feel pain at 15 weeks.
Virginians have been very clear. They want to see fewer abortions, not more. Unfortunately, and very disappointingly, the Senate Democrats have failed to listen to Virginians and instead have tried to progress a constitutional amendment to make abortion on demand.
A 2022 Wall Street Journal poll found more Americans support a 15-week abortion ban than oppose it. According to the Charlotte Lozier Institute, approximately 6% of all reported abortions take place at or after 15 weeks. Most of those are often performed for the same reasons as earlier abortions, such as delays in recognizing the pregnancy or taking more time to decide to terminate it. President Biden continues to state he only supports unrestricted abortion access.
Congress must restore the right that was taken away in Roe v. Wade and protect Roe v. Wade.
While many polls indicate the majority of Americans want some restrictions on abortion, Senator Lindsey Graham's proposed legislation supporting a 15-week ban received no support from Democrats on the Hill, and even a few Republicans hesitated to get on board. Jenna?
All right, White House correspondent Abigail Robertson, thank you. Well, to election 2024, Nikki Haley has officially announced her run for the White House. The former South Carolina governor leaping into the GOP presidential primary today at a packed rally in the Palmetto State.
We're ready to move past the stale ideas and faded names of the past. And we are more than ready for a new generation to lead us into the future.
And the former UN ambassador will head to early voting states New Hampshire and Iowa in the coming days, making a campaign push for a renewal of American pride. And CBN News sat down with Haley today. You can catch David Brody's interview with her tomorrow on the 700 Club and on the CBN News Channel and app. All right, with that, let's bring in Julia Manchester, national political reporter for The Hill. Julia, welcome. Good to see you. So right now it is just Nikki Haley and Donald Trump. Do you think her announcement will spur on other GOP hopefuls?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we will definitely, regardless of the timing of the announcement, Jenna, I think there are some other GOP hopefuls like Ron DeSantis, like Glenn Youngkin, for example, who are just waiting for the legislative sessions in their states to wrap up before they jump in. However, look, she is absolutely getting a head start. She's getting South Carolina congressional endorsements already. Maybe that could potentially spur Senator Tim Scott to potentially throw his hat in the ring. We know that he's very much exploring a bid. And of course, you have a number of other Republicans who could run in a similar lane in Haley or could share similar lanes with Haley. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, they both have that foreign policy experience, having served in those roles during the Trump administration. He's someone who could jump into this. Larry Hogan, someone who's definitely been a bit more critical of Donald Trump than Nikki Haley. But, we know that Nikki Haley has a very uneasy relationship maybe, or she's walking a fine line in terms of her relationship with Donald Trump. And we know that she's a former governor. So that makes Larry Hogan, maybe he makes a decision based on that. Asa Hutchinson, former governor of Arkansas, he's someone who's been floated. So I think we'll see a number of names coming up soon.
Yeah, a lot of names being floated. We know a crowded field would help Donald Trump. Julia, a big test for Nikki Haley will be to win South Carolina, where Trump is still pretty popular. Can she win the Republican primary without her home state?
I think it's going to be very difficult to win without her home state because she first has to go through Iowa and New Hampshire. And, if she's not picking up a lot of momentum there, maybe there's a strategy that says, go to South Carolina after those two states and then get momentum there and sail through Super Tuesday. That's what happened to Joe Biden on the Democratic side in 2020. But look, I think it's very important for her to win her home state. And it obviously speaks volumes when you don't win your home state. So that's going to be important. And look, South Carolina is a very important state when it comes to the Republican primary electorate. So, it's going to be imperative for her to play well there. And we know that she's a very popular former governor, was a very popular governor when she was in office. So if she's not carrying a presidential primary there, that's going to speak volumes.
Still no official re-election bid from President Biden, Julia, as he deals with still struggling poll numbers. Do you think we'll see him run again?
Look, all that we've heard kind of points us in the direction that he is actually preparing to run again, just figuring out what that timing is. We're expecting it to be sometime in the spring. And in the case if he weren't to run again, Democrats don't really have a bench. No one's really spoken up to talk about primarying Joe Biden. Of course, there are lots of Democrats who have been floated for 2028, a number of governors, a number of senators. But right now, I think a lot of Democrats are expecting the president to run.
Julia Manchester with The Hill, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Well, how safe are the skies over America? That's what senators want to know after 2023 kicked off with air traffic problems and near misses that could have led to a catastrophe. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka has this story. Matt?
Well, Jenna, a system failure last month impacted flights nationwide. And if it wasn't for a quick-thinking pilot in Texas, we might be talking about the worst air tragedy in decades. Senators grilled the FAA's acting administrator on the growing problems today.
Southwest aboard. FedEx is on the go.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz had his office recreate this scenario based on the flight data. It happened at Austin's airport on February 4th. A FedEx plane came within 100 feet of colliding with a Southwest passenger jet carrying 128 people.
It is only through, as I understand it, the heroism of the pilots being alert and seeing what was happening that tragedy was averted. And yet, my question is, how can this happen?
Acting FAA Administrator Billy Nolan says while the incident remains under investigation, there was low visibility that day in Austin.
It is not what we would expect to have happen. But when we think about the controls, how we train both our controllers and our pilot, the system works as it's designed to avert what you say could have been a horrific outcome.
The near catastrophe is one of many incidents shining a spotlight on the FAA over the past few months. A notice to air missions or NOTAM system outage temporarily grounded all air traffic in January. After keeping all planes out of the sky for the first time since 9/11, we learned the harm was apparently self-inflicted.
The FAA's preliminary findings are that contract personnel unintentionally deleted files while working to correct synchronization issues between the live primary database and the backup database.
Nolan told senators changes have been made to prevent the issue from happening again, although the system is still in need of modernization, which means more federal funding.
Instead of it focusing on safety, the FAA and DOT were working hard to change NOTAM's name from Notice to Airmen to Notice to Air Missions. I would suggest instead the focus should have been on making sure the thing worked.
There was another near collision last month at JFK Airport in New York when a jet crossed onto another runway. The FAA promised to form a safety review team and hold a safety summit in order to address new risks in the sky. Jenna?
Correspondent Matt Galka, thank you, Matt. The world's biggest influencer on TV's biggest stage. Coming up, we talk with the people behind the Super Bowl ad everyone is still talking about. Welcome back. An estimated 113 million people watched the Super Bowl this Sunday, and that means at least that many people saw 2 ads promoting Jesus. The Christian campaign, He Gets Us, left viewers with messages to have childlike faith and to love your enemies. Together, the 2 ads ranked as the second most engaging commercial on Sunday night. 'Cause I'm only human after all. And the campaign was introduced in 2022 with billboards all across America aiming to increase the relevance of Jesus in American culture. And joining us now, Jason Vanderground, president of the marketing firm Haven and co-creator of He Gets Us, the campaign. Jason, welcome. Great to have you with us this evening. So these commercials, they have sparked quite a reaction nationwide. Talk to us a little bit about what you've seen, what people have told you, just the reaction.
It's just been phenomenal. I mean, to see Jesus and He Gets Us, trending on social media, to know that people are searching Jesus a lot more, and just that he's a part of the conversation now. That was our goal with He Gets Us.
Yeah, I know when I saw one of the first commercial on Super Bowl Sunday night, it stopped me in my tracks, and they're captivating. There has been some criticism, Jason, from other Christians about what they call watered down Jesus, some describing this as a woke Jesus movement. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think in 90 seconds worth of ads to get out 2 of Jesus' fundamental teachings, which were, he told us to be childlike. And he said, if you want to understand what my way is like, think about a child, the love and wonder and awe of a child. And then another one of his core teachings was to love your enemies. So he lays that out pretty clearly for us in Matthew. And I think for us to be able to get across those 2 core teachings of his in 90 seconds, that's a great start for the American people. And that's what we were really trying to accomplish on Sunday night.
We've seen some criticism, too, from lawmakers and different people about the money that your campaign spent on these commercials. What would you say to these people who say, you could have spent this money on helping the poor or doing other things? What's your reaction or response to them?
Yeah, I think, a lot of money is spent on advertising, and a lot of things are advertised. We think this is about the most noble thing that the advertising money could be spent on. So one of the things that we love, too, is with our merch, people can't purchase our gear. They have to agree to forgive somebody or love somebody or help their neighbor. And we've had over 80,000 people get T-shirts and hats and say, in exchange for that, I'm going to make a point of loving my enemy, caring for my neighbor. So the money is translating into a lot of good things being done in the name of Jesus.
These ads come at a pivotal time when religious affiliation and church attendance is declining. New data from the Barna Group, though, shows spiritual openness on the rise in the U.S. Jason, what kind of hope does this give you?
Yeah, 85% of Americans consider themselves to be spiritually open. But a large percentage of those they're just skeptical about Christianity. And so our goal is to put Jesus clearly in front of the American people. And they're actually fascinated by his value system. They're interested in his teaching. So it gives us a lot of hope for the future.
All right. Well, Jason Vanderground, co-creator of He Gets Us, thank you so much for coming on Faith Nation tonight. It's great to see you and great to meet you.
Thanks, Jenna.
All right, foul odor up next. Sick or dead animals and fears over drinking water. Just the latest backlash from a toxic train crash. More devastation in the aftermath of the deadly earthquakes along the border of Turkey and Syria. The death toll now more than 41,000 and expected to keep climbing. A few survivors are still being found, though, like this 42-year-old woman who was saved 222 hours after being buried in the rubble. But much of the focus is now on disaster relief for victims of the quake. This woman in Turkey telling CBN's Operation Blessing how much they need after this historic tragedy.
We need food, we need water, we need everything. We don't have anything. Even shoes. Help us, help us. We need your help.
And Operation Blessing's teams have packed supplies for survivors, including hygiene and basic items for families, along with food for children. Also, solar lamps to help people see in the darkness while they are without power. Here in the U.S., more backlash over a freight train derailment that spilled loads of toxic chemicals and the intentional burning of some of those chemicals. The town of East Palestine, Ohio, will hold a town hall tonight to discuss residents' questions and concerns, including ongoing smells, reports of sick or dead animals, the potential impact on drinking water, and much more. CBN's Brody Carter has that story.
Authorities maintained they were doing their best when they chose to conduct a controlled burn of the toxic materials that spilled to avoid an explosion. They do admit these chemicals did have some effect on the water and air, but they say and maintain the drinking water has been protected.
The spill did flow to the Ohio River during that initial slug, but the Ohio River is very large, and it's a water body that's able to dilute the pollutants pretty quickly.
We have estimated, based on our sampling and modeling, about 3,500 dead fish.
At least 3 toxic substances were released into the air, soil, or water, according to the Environmental Protection Agency.
Most people can be around these volatile organic compounds at low levels without really feeling health effects. However, at higher levels, especially over a longer period of time, then we can have longer-term health effects. And that's why there is the concern around these compounds.
One substance called vinyl chloride, which is used to make plastics like PVC piping, was diverted into a trench and burned off.
This is not storm clouds!
The chemical is associated with increased risk of cancer, and when it's burned, releases similar gases used as a weapon in World War I. Concerns are shared across several cities.
You didn't have to do this. You did it because of time and money.
Ohio Governor DeWine said he spoke with Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw, who promised the company would remain in the area until the damage was completely cleared.
Gave me his word and his commitment that the railroad would do that. They would not leave until that was done.
But the governor was surprised to learn the reason the state wasn't notified about what was in those rail cars coming through Ohio.
Even though some rail cars did have hazardous material on board, and while most of them did not, that's why it was not categorized as a high hazardous material train. Frankly, if this is true, and I'm told it's true, this is absurd.
Norfolk Southern is testing the air and water inside hundreds of homes. Results will be released next week. The Guardian reports about 4.5 million tons of toxic chemicals are shipped by rail every year, with one former Norfolk Southerner engineer telling the paper the Ohio wreck is the tip of the iceberg and a red flag, and that the next one could be cataclysmic. The derailment has renewed calls for stringent federal oversight of the rail industry so other communities might be protected in the future. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Still ahead, witnessing a work of God, a Holy Spirit outpouring that shows no sign of stopping. Finally tonight, it's been 1 week since a regular Wednesday chapel at Asbury University in Kentucky transformed into something much bigger. Hundreds of students, professors, and local church leaders taking part in a revival. People are traveling to the university to join in this move of God and hoping it spreads across the country. Wendy Griffith brings us the story from Wilmore, Kentucky.
The revival here at Asbury is now in its 6th night, as hundreds of people have come from near and far to just enjoy the presence of God. Even though it's almost midnight, this auditorium is still packed with people that are still coming in.
In the last 2 evenings, we've estimated well over 3,000 people that are here and at these different locations to worship the Lord.
Were you prepared for this?
No, there's no playbook for this. We're still trying to create some space for what's happening here. And so that's a delicate balance, and we're trying to manage that as thoughtfully and faithfully as we can and just steward what's happening on campus.
I was definitely a bit skeptical at first just because growing up with my church, we never had anything like this, and so I just wasn't used to the idea of a revival. But the longer it's gone on, I've realized that if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen.
My prayer is that this will encourage churches, encourage pastors, encourage just believers, and just stir up a hunger for the Lord, because again, it's not about Asbury, it's about Jesus.
The fire that started here at Asbury is reportedly spreading as students from nearly 24 other college campuses have come here to take part in the services. And what God started here a week ago is showing no signs of stopping. Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Asbury University in Wilmore, Kentucky.
All right, Kingdom Come, let it be. That's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.